Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. McCabe, can you, without going to the specific of any individual investigation, I think the American people want to know, has the dismissal of Mr. Comey in any way impeded, interrupted, stopped, or negatively impacted any of the work, any investigation, or any ongoing projects at the Federal Bureau of Investigations?
As you know, Senator, the work of the men and women of the FBI continues despite any changes in circumstance, any decisions. So there has been no effort to impede our investigation to date. Quite simply put, sir, you cannot stop the men and women of the FBI from doing the right thing, protecting the American people, and upholding the Constitution.
And this is for all the members of the committee, as has been widely reported, and people know this. Kaspersky Lab software is used by not hundreds of thousands, millions of Americans. To each of our witnesses, I would just ask, would any of you be comfortable with the Kaspersky Lab software on your computers?
A resounding no for me.
No.
No, Senator.
No, sir.
No, Senator.
No, sir.
On the Director Pompeo, on Venezuela, which was mentioned in Director Coates's statements, as all of you are probably well aware, armed civilian groups or colectivos, these militias in the street, have been armed by the regime for purposes of defending, for lack of a better term, the regime from protesters. We all are aware of the Maduro regime's cozy relationship with Hezbollah, with the FARC, which is a designated terrorist organization, and links to narco-trafficking. Among the weapons in the stockpile, the military in Venezuela, are Igla-S, these basically Russian variant of our Stinger missiles. Director Pompeo, if you could comment on the risk that I believe exists that as these groups become more desperate, potentially even operate at some point outside the control of the Maduro regime, they're running around in the streets, also in search of money and food and anything else that they want to get their hands on, the threat of any advanced weaponry, such as what I've just mentioned, being sold or transferred to the FARC, a terrorist organization, sold to drug cartels in Mexico potentially, or even sold to terrorist organizations on the black market. Is that a real threat? Is that something we should be cognizant of?
Senator, it is a real threat. As we have all seen, the situation in Venezuela continues to deteriorate. Maduro gets more desperate by the hour. The risk of these colectivos acting in a way that is not under his control increases as time goes on as well. In classified setting, I'm happy to share with you a little bit more about the details of what we know. We have not seen any of those major arms transfers take place. We don't have any evidence that those have taken place to date, but those stockpiles exist not only in the Maduro regime, but other places as well. There are plenty of weapons running around in Venezuela, and this risk is incredibly real and serious, and ultimately a threat to South America and Central America, in addition to just in Venezuela.
Staying in the Western Hemisphere for a moment, and this potentially is also to the Director McCabe, but certainly to you, Director Pompeo, I continue to be concerned about the potential, and what I believe is the reality of a concerted effort on the part of the Cuban government to recruit and unwittingly enlist Americans, business executives, and others, even local and state political leaders, in an effort to have them influence U.S. policymaking on Cuba, and particularly the lifting of the embargo. Would this be a tactic consistent with what we have seen in the past from other nation states, including the regime in Cuba?
I'll let Mr. McCabe make a comment as well, but yes, of course. Frankly, this is consistent with what we, right, this is the attempt to interfere in the United States is not limited to Russia. The Cubans have deep ties. It is in their deepest tradition to take American visitors and do their best to influence them in a way that is adverse to U.S. interests.
Yes, sir. Fully agree. We share your concerns about that issue.
And my final question is, on all this focus on Russia and what's happened in the past, is it the opinion of all of you, or those of you certainly all have insight on this, that even as we focus on 2016 and the efforts leading up to that election, efforts to influence policymaking here in the United States vis-a-vis the Russian interests are ongoing, that the Russians continue to use active measures, even at this moment, even on this day, to try to, through the use of multiple different ways, to influence the political debate and the decisions made in American politics, particularly as they pertain to Russia's interests around the world. In essence, these active measures is an ongoing threat, not simply something that happened in the past.
Yes, sir, that's right.
Senator, it's right. In some sense, though, we ought to put in context. This has been going on for a long time. There's nothing new. Only the cost has been lessened, the cost of doing it.
I would just add that the use of cyber and social media significantly increased the impact and the capabilities that Russia. Obviously, this has been done for years and years, even decades. But the ability they have to use the interconnectedness and all that provides that didn't provide before, they've literally upped their game to the point where it's having a significant impact.
From my perspective, I would just highlight cyber is enabling them to access information in massive quantities that weren't quite attainable to the same level previously. And that's just another tool in their attempt to acquire information, misuse of that information, manipulation, outright lies, inaccuracies at times, but in other times actually dumping raw data, which is, as we also saw during this last presidential election cycle for us.